Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for tuning in to Wrestling Shed Live for Wrestling Shed Extra today. And today we have owner, operator, and promoter of New Evolution Wrestling, Travis Canning. New Evolution Wrestling is from St. John's, Newfoundland, has been in operation since 2015. They have two upcoming events, one on June 11th, it's year 5. The next day, it's Summercade 5 on June 12th. Both events are coming from CLB Armory in the downtown St. John's area. Ladies and gentlemen, Travis Canning.
Thanks for having me on. I've been wanting to do this for a while.
Thanks for joining me, man. It's a pleasure to have you for sure. How's everything going?
Good. Just trying to get through everything with COVID. You know how it is. Dealing with 1/5 of the audience is never cool, but
we'll get to the other end now. Yeah. So how are you doing today, man? Lazy Sunday?
Lazy Sunday, just trying to roll the dice on some other stuff, trying to get some shows booked going into the summer. A few texts going back and forward, nothing unusual, but nothing stressful either, so that's good.
That's good. Always busy for sure.
Always.
Good. We'll start it out like any traditional wrestling interview. And I'm going to say, how did you get into wrestling, most particularly local wrestling and promoting, getting into that stuff? So where did you start?
I started with NCW, I believe, in 1999. I think that was the year, don't quote me on that, Newfoundland Championship Wrestling. And you know how it was back then, just all of us together having fun. It was new to everybody. We were all kind of like growing. In hindsight, it was probably a little bit backyardish, but we were all there and had fun and grew up together. So that's kind of how I got into it. So I've been around off and on since that time. I took a little bit of a gap, I think in like the early 2000s for about 7 or 8 years. And when I was presented with the opportunity to go back and do some stuff with CEW when it relaunched in 2010 or 2011, I thought it was a good idea to sort of jump back in and get my feet wet. And I've been pretty much involved ever since until I started and launched my own company in 2015. So.
All right. So anyone's watching, CEW is, of course, Cutting Edge Wrestling. And like you said, they came back in, what was it, 2011?
I think late 2011, we relaunched and had our first show at the Majestic. So that's when I got back into it again after being away from it for a while.
So what was your role like overall? Like, did you have, were you promoting in that sense, or did you have any other?
I was promoting in the sense that I was actually physically doing some of the promoting, but at the time I wasn't an owner or anything involved. I was strictly, just a promoter. On the show, I was a referee. I was almost like a little bit of a gopher, kind of like anything you could do to help.
Right.
I know when we relaunched and, the original owners from the relaunch began buying the ring and all the materials and everything, everybody like myself and the core group of people who were involved were just throwing random bits of money at everything, including the ring and accessories, to just try to get everything back on the go, because there was a lot of guys there at the time that wanted to be involved in wrestling and weren't really being given the opportunity with LCW that was running at the time. So that was kind of the motivation behind it at that time. So
right on. So basically you picked up everything along the way, and within that you decided yourself that you wanted to actually start your own promotion. When did that come about?
So in 2015, Cutting Edge Wrestling had gone through probably a bunch of different promoters, and there was no real what you would call formal office there, to use internal lingo. And it just seemed like, for me, I was putting a lot more money into it. I was almost became the financial backer, and there were some decisions that were being made, and I didn't really agree with them because it was my money that was on the line. So I didn't want to leave wrestling, and I didn't want to leave some of the guys that I'd helped build a product with. So I decided to start my own company and sort of do my own thing in that regard, because I just felt like I wasn't done. I felt like I could do more, and wrestling could do more. And there was a lot of people on the roster at the time that could do more. And so that's why we launched New Evolution Wrestling.
Right. So your first show was in 2015, and that
Yeah.
was at CLB Armory, correct?
Yeah, I believe it was December 30th, the day before New Year's Eve.
And who was your big headliner for that big show?
That was Rene Dupree.
Rene
He came
Dupree.
in, he was amazing. If you look at a lot of the media out there, you'll get a different version of events, but nothing but respect for that guy. He helped us out quite a bit whenever he's been here. So sometimes what you see is not what actually is, you know. Um, he came in and helped everybody, done some seminars. Even leading up to it, he was skeptical about the attendance we were going to get because it was, I think it was a Wednesday night. Um, the day before New Year's in Newfoundland, and the snowstorm, all that kind of stuff could happen, Newfoundland weather, and it just everything was against us, but we pulled it off, and we had a sold out crowd that night. And when I mean sold out, every show has comp tickets, but that one there was a lot less comp tickets than paid ones, and that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool.
Awesome. So, like any true indie promotion, you started right off the hop and got an actual name in there and headliner with
Yeah.
Rene Dupree, like you said. Who are some other big names that you had along the way? Like you're coming up on year 5 on June 11th. So
Yeah.
5 years is a long time. So tell anybody who's watching who you had along the way.
Well, some of my favorite people are like Billy Gunn, the Hurricane. We brought in Josh Alexander. Um, there's a list of names. Tito Santana was an absolute gem. Eugene was absolutely great. Johnny Devine was someone that I really liked and got a huge appreciation for because he done an amazing seminar. Not that other people haven't, but the feedback you get from some of the people when they do the seminars, you can tell whether they thoroughly enjoyed it and got their money's worth, and being informative and things like that. And Johnny Devine was a huge hit all around. So I really thoroughly enjoyed that. As a lot of great people have had experiences with over the years, but it's just a few of the names. Arn Anderson, obviously the biggest one. We had 1,000 people for that show, which we had at the Capital Hyundai Arena. So that was our biggest paid event to date. So that was amazing and a wonderful experience, I think, for myself. At least, if nothing else, I can say I had a beer with Arn Anderson. So
Awesome. Yeah, it's one thing to have guys in and to work your own shows and be there for the fans and whatnot, but it's definitely another thing to have them come in and give back, almost to teach the people on your roster the ways of the wrestling world.
yeah, and that's the thing. There's guys that'll come in and they'll just do it for like the payday or whatever. And there's other people, they'll come in and they want to leave something and make it better than when they came here.
Yeah.
And 99% of the time, it's my experience that the guys that we booked have the latter representation of themselves. They want to come in and leave the place better than when they found it. I don't got the other side of that yet too often, maybe once. But more often than not, my experiences in that regard have been great, and the wrestlers here have benefited from it. Bringing Tyson Dukes in for a full year and having him doing seminars. I know he's not a big name, but he's probably been our most consistent, notable name that we've brought in now. Obviously, the pandemic threw a monkey wrench into those plans, but Tyson Dukes is completely invaluable. The things that he can offer are endless in terms of in-ring. I just can't put that guy over enough. He's helped our roster so much, continues to actually. A lot of our talent, especially the young ones, they reach out to him for matches to go over matches and things like that. And then you look at his YouTube and walkthroughs and stuff that he's created. So even virtually, he continues to put a stamp on the roster and the work we're doing here. And a lot of the young guys you see coming around now, they've done a lot of work with them.
Yeah. Speaking of the young guys, I mean, it's been a while since I've been to one of your shows, to be quite honest, but I have been following along. Young guys, there's a new influx of talent in New Evolution Wrestling. You want to talk about some of the new guys like Jeremiah Javen, Denver Peters, Cameron Stevens, any of those guys?
So Jeremiah Javen, first of all, is a guy who we stumbled upon probably about 2016, 2017. He happened to shoot me a message one night, and I found out that he actually had his own wrestling ring and had actually had it for years. And he used that ring in his home area where his family had some land to constantly do training and things of that nature. And like any good local person who loves wrestling, is very passionate about it, they end up doing a lot of things and doing them the wrong way because we have no structure. And so when I seen that and seen potential, but also seen that he needed guidance, uh, himself and his friend Brady began doing training with us and things of that nature. And he, over the past year in particular, he stuck around. He's taken off probably about 60 or 70 pounds from what he used to weigh. Getting into kickboxing, doing extra training, doing seminars with Tyson Dukes. I believe Steve White, Aziz, has done some work with Javen too, with some training on the side away from NEW. So that's helped them too. Um, so him in particular, he's a huge standout based on where he started and where he is. But we have a whole plethora of new talent. Shannon Shaw, someone that came along within the past year, ended up using him kind of by accident because I had to have people for a show that I needed to use a certain way. And you know how it is, independent wrestling. You don't get the opportunity sometimes unless the opportunity presents itself. And he came out and we were like, we can't not book this guy now. And I made a mistake thinking that maybe I could not book him right away. And then Tyson Dukes told me I should have been booking him like 6 months prior. And I felt really bad about that because I should have listened to Dukes. But you know, you don't want to put people in too soon. And if you know anything about the previous Newfoundland wrestling scene here, there's a huge history of putting people in when they're not ready. So, but this dude's ready, ball of energy, ready to go. Cameron Stevens is someone who was here, born here in Marystown, spent a lot of his history doing training up in Alberta since he started wrestling for RCW, wrestling with Danny Duggan up in Canadian Wrestling Elite, and has had some training with Bruce Hart as well. So all around, these guys are great. They're up and coming and they're hungry, which is great. And so it makes my company less stagnant, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the characters, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to get people in the doors, you got to get people invested, and that's what it's all about. I mean, indie wrestling, let's call it what it is. I mean, there's not a Daniel Bryan on every card out there that, you know, there's not solid wrestling from top to bottom. So to get people in there, you really got to have those characters, and it's good to see you got a few characters there for sure.
Absolutely.
So moving on, I mean, the pandemic has really kicked everyone's ass. So how have you been dealing with it? Like, as a promoter, like what adjustments have you made other than the obvious during this pandemic and getting back on board and getting back to business?
The biggest adjustment I made was actually not running at all for a while because we couldn't. But we had a tour planned in 2020 to go right across the province out as far as Corner Brook, if I remember correctly. And so I had all the promotional work and everything done for that. I mean, I had like posters bought, I had tickets printed, I had ads placed, things of that nature that you normally do when you're financing a tour. Um, anyway, I never was going to get the return on that money based on what happened. Looking in hindsight, 2020 has never happened. So I lost a little bit of money, and then anything we would have had on the books, I also lost. So that hurt. At the same time, everybody's hurting. So I feel like because of that, we're getting a little bit of a break in the eyes of the fans, if you will. They're really coming out to support us, and even some of the fans who haven't been at shows in a while are coming back because they're like, yeah, these guys are trying to pull their weight in the middle of a pandemic with limited access to have people there. So we gotten a bit of a break in that regard. So we've been kind of lucky. And so other things, like I've reworked financial agreements with venues, and I had to contact promoters outside of Newfoundland to find out how they were doing running when they were running during a pandemic, and just get a general outline so I could go present it to venues and be like, hey, this is what I want to do, so that it's comfortable for you to allow us to run. So that was a bit of a headache at first, like pulling teeth. And I think like it took me 3 or 4 months to actually get the ball rolling on that because everybody was apprehensive and really didn't want to. It's a pandemic, you know what I mean? So I understand that. So those were the hardships that I went through. And the company, obviously, the boys weren't wrestling, weren't in the ring, so they were missing out on some ring time, which we don't have a lot of in Newfoundland anyway. So, as you can appreciate, they weren't getting the work they needed. So, which is why I chose to do it anyway. We're not making a whole lot of money running right now, but if I can do it, keep our name out there, keep our name on TV, get footage, until we get through the pandemic and have the guys, the crew, being able to wrestle at least to do something. Uh, that's okay with me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest promotions in the world are having a hard time. So the fact that you got shows coming up right now anyway, that's a plus.
To my, as of this recording right now, to my knowledge, we're the only indie promotion running in Canada.
Oh, really?
To my knowledge, and for a while
I
we
don't
were,
say there's many for sure.
yeah, for a while the Maritimes was running again, but right now they're shut down again. So to my knowledge,
Yeah,
we're the only ones running right now.
right on. All right, Travis, we're going to take a quick break, but we're definitely going to come back and we're going to finish this up and see what else you got to say. But we'll be back right after this.
Perfect.
And we are back. And of course, this is Wrestling Shed Live Extra with Travis Canning. Today's episode is sponsored by Fogtown Barbershop. Check out Fogtown right now online, fogtownbarber.com, to book a barber or check out the side shop. There's lots of hoodies, tees, hats, stickers, whatever you want. And right now you can use the special code Wrestling Shed online to get 10% off the checkout for any of your items right now. So check them out, Fogtown Barbershop. All right, Travis, moving on, buddy. I just want to ask, New Evolution Wrestling, it's all about evolution in Newfoundland wrestling particularly. You pride yourself on being innovative and always evolving, obviously. What approach do you take in doing things differently than those before you?
Well, right now, nothing, because I can't, because of the pandemic. But I think,
in general terms, like pandemic aside, like say if things were running, let's rewind the clock about a year and a half, say.
okay, so what normally I would like to do when I say New Evolution Wrestling is trying to not be stagnant, always making sure that someone has the ability to come to our shows and enjoy it. You and I have often talked about how while you like some of the talent on the local scene, it can become complacent watching the same talent face each other 100 times. And some of the local talent have been around here forever. So part of that for me, in the grand scheme of things, was to constantly develop new talent or constantly bring in people from away who can help talent develop here so that they can elevate and do different things. The other thing I wanted to do was actually put independent wrestling on a different level, business wise here. So I feel like I've done that to a certain degree in terms of we've got into Mile One Center by aligning ourselves with St. John's Edge and Growlers and things like that. Just getting out into the community more and doing it right, and not doing things that can harbor our growth when it comes to businesses outside the community. Being able to go into other arenas, outside of little areas like the CLB. As much as I love the CLB, God bless them, they've always been good to us. We need to get bigger. So I'd like to consistently move forward and do bigger events like 700 people, 1,000 people, maybe get to two. I want to try to fill out the Glacier at some point. I really want to do a Mile One show at some point with our own show instead of not to say other people can't be involved, but I really want it to be ours. So when I say like growth and evolving as a company, that's what I mean, is constantly, even if you don't do it, at least try to set goals to look, because they're not realistic sometimes, right? But if you don't set any goals, then you're going to be in the same place. So I guess from my standpoint, whether it's talent in the ring, developing new talent, setting financial goals, setting like growth goals, that's what I mean about being an evolving product. It doesn't necessarily mean one thing. It just means overall, we're going to try to continue to grow and make this bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't want a ceiling. Um, I don't want to go do something that's somebody's already done for a long time. and get complacent. I don't want to start up something and do the same thing. When I left NEW, it was because there were people doing the same things and they were content with doing things how they were doing them, despite the fact that there was risks there that they've already been through before. So I wanted to do something to change it, move forward, try to make it better for everybody, the fans, talent alike. So that's what I mean when I say new evolution wrestling.
Right. So year 5, it's almost at a crucial point right now in a promotion, especially locally. I mean, you look back in history, the relaunch of the cutting edge CEW, like we said, Connor was about 5 years. Legend City Wrestling, LCW, Con about 5 years. So right now you're getting to that point. So other than what you just said, do you have any little things in the works to maybe continue your growth? Any people on the wish list? Any little goals in mind?
Yeah, so my goal, I feel like even like financially myself, and this is just me being candid and honest, I feel like myself at this level of infrastructure, um, we need other financial investments to grow. So I am looking for opportunities that might involve other people. Um, Something that's not been done in a long time. And while it has been done, there's different opportunities to do it now. 19 plus shows. I haven't done those since the Majestic days with CEW. That's something, especially now when you look and gauge at where the market is too with wrestling fans and like AEW, and you're seeing all this 19 plus stuff, or at least older model stuff that's not necessarily garnered towards kids. For a really long time, I've targeted a general audience because that's the way the wrestling business was here for like the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years, really.
Yeah.
Um, but it seems to me, especially where things are growing in all sorts of ways now due to technology, there's literally a market for just about any type of product. So what I want to do is I want to take a hybrid approach, and I'm not going to go away from the kid model. Obviously, I'm going to target those audiences, but I really want to put my head back into the 19 plus model, because I've had adults around our age that have come up to me and they're like, I want to go to a wrestling show, but I want to sit down and watch my wrestling show and I want to have a beer.
Yeah.
And, I don't want my intelligence insulted in thinking, that this gimmick is actually, like CPU and things like that. They're very childlike and
Yeah.
they want a more serious product, right? So it's like, um, for me, I want to cater to multiple markets and take a more diverse approach, I guess. So that's what I'm looking for. So in the works right now are attempts at myself trying to come to agreements with other venues for like 19 plus, or at least a hybrid ability to do both. So that's something where I'm going for personal growth as a company, or you know, um, so in that regard, yeah, that's where I'm to right now. Long term, I want to fill out an arena with like maybe 2,000 people. I want to double up on what we do with Arn Anderson. People in the works. I know Tyson Dukes is probably going to be back into the fold more than likely once the pandemic subsides. Probably going to reach out to some maybe Impact or AEW names and tour the province. So uh, that's kind of where we're at it right now. We're planning for the future.
Excellent. Excellent. So obviously you're a fan of wrestling. So how much are you watching the current product of professional wrestling on television right now?
I mean, it's there. It's when you're walking through a supermarket and you hear like Nickelback on the radio, that's kind of like if I turn on WWE or something, that's kind of what it is. It's there. I'll sit down and I'll play a game of something or other with my wife, and we'll have a drink. It's kind of on in the background, but it's almost like background noise, especially now where there's no audience there. And WWE in particular just seems to keep putting, and I'm not shitting on them because I know they all work hard, and we had this conversation the other day, but they keep putting on the same type of product all the time. And it's like literally placeholder wrestling. Drop this match here, drop this match here. It's like they have a formula and they just drop things in, and it's like one thing you've seen it all. Um, that being said, I critique AEW to no end, but I watch it more because it's Raw.
It's
You know what I mean?
different,
Yeah, which is ironic because WWE's show is Raw, but it's
right?
not Raw. It's formulaic and manufactured beyond holy hell. But AEW is actually a really raw product, and while they are making mistakes and things like that, they get the benefit of the doubt from at least trying.
Yeah.
So it's very much engaging, and because it's unpredictable to me, it's almost like watching junior hockey, in the sense that they don't have a formula where you're seeing the same thing all the time. You're going to see a left when you get a right, or a right when you get a left, or you're going to see something happen that's like unexpected. So I kind of enjoy that a lot more. So that's kind of like where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no lack of wrestling out there. I mean, every single day of the week, there's wrestling on. And the internet, of course, you can go on there, and if you're good at the Google, find yourself some wrestling.
For
But
sure.
yeah, there's no shortage of wrestling at all. So definitely get out there and watch some wrestling if you haven't been. But it's not really maybe the best on Raw, but there is other places to watch some as well. Uh, Obviously, being involved in independent wrestling and local wrestling here in Newfoundland, you're no stranger to controversy. So, basically, what's your opinion on the so-called rivalry between AEW and WWE, or maybe even the fans more so than the actual promotions?
Well, that's what I think it is. I think it is more so the fans and the promotions, and that's not to say that they're not competing, because I do believe they are. But let's call a spade a spade. Like before, Vince McMahon was going up against a billionaire corporation, and there was this middleman in ECW that was kind of like there in existence, and they existed because the other two were fighting with each other. Right now, all the top companies are owned by billionaires. Sinclair Broadcasting owns Ring of Honor. The Aspen family owns Impact. Tony Khan owns AEW. Vince McMahon owns WWE. Like they don't have to compete. It's literally placeholder wrestling. If they really wanted to, they could treat all their wrestlers like plumbers and just be like, oh, I don't like this plumber. I'll get another plumber. You can literally do that with a wrestler now. And everything is so huge that they don't have to really even compete anymore.
Well,
Right?
that's the thing. They don't actually flagship the program with one person like they did with Hogan or Stone Cold or even Cena to an extent later. But now it's just like you said, you just insert wherever you need somebody.
Yeah.
The brand is the actual headliner. So
The brand is the draw. And to be honest with you, from a business perspective, it really should be, because putting all your eggs in one basket, well, what if that dude gets hurt? Or what if that dude's contract's coming up and he wants some certain amount of money that's just unrealistic to give?
right.
Because there's people out there like that, right?
Yeah, and I mean marketing and investments and video game licensing. There's so many different layers to it that I don't know. A lot of people take for granted, and it's easy just to maybe complain on the internet or bellyache. But there's a lot more to it, as you know, as a promoter.
Yeah. And with that being said, if they're taking the mentality that they all have at this point, I think they need to get rid of the independent contractor label at that level, because they're really just hired guns. They're not, you know what I mean? Like they're there for a contract, but I mean, if they expect people to like not be able to work everywhere, they need to be devoted to that product. And if you're going to really fully invest in your talent, you want them to invest in you, you should get rid of the whole independent contractor thing altogether. If you had the money to just pay somebody,
Yeah,
uh, the biggest, I know Vince McMahon has a little bit more control, even though they're independent contractors. But with AEW, they're allowed to wrestle everywhere, and I'm not sure that's a good idea to send Kenny Omega out to wrestle in an independent promotion that might have a broken ring, or somebody do something shady and not have proper security. Uh, so I also think it's a bit of a risk in that regard.
yeah,
All these
definitely.
concussion lawsuits that came out years later, Vince McMahon probably, and I don't know if they're still in litigation, but I mean, a lot of these guys used to work independents and they go back and sue Vince McMahon because they got hurt on something stupid. So that's the risk that Vince has always been dealing with, right?
That's right.
Uh, so, I mean, for me, the personal growth where wrestling is for all the wrestlers right now at that level, they're all owned by billionaires. Contractual obligations like the independent contractor thing should just be gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I don't know. Things are changing, but I think they're changing for the good. AEW, if anyone is going to be offering maybe a healthcare plan or a retirement plan down the line, I'd say it might be them. But I think it's a little too early to maybe even talk about that stuff right now. They've only been around for about a year and a half, 2 years. So we'll see how that goes.
I hope they do. I mean, and if they do, it'll force WWE to do it. Now, to be honest with you, WWE always takes care of their wrestlers, and to the best of my knowledge, a lot of them have like insurance, even if they're like not, even if they're paying it for themselves, they're making enough money to where it doesn't really matter. But you know, it just the image of not taking care of your workers at that level just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
So
that's it. It's the way of the world. It's the wrestling world, of course. But speaking of or going back to the local scene, I should say, maybe a little a shout out or a tribute, if you will, to a member of the local wrestling community who we lost there recently. Do you want to tell people about that?
yeah, so and you've been around a long time too, and sort of dabbled around the local wrestling scene, and I'm sure you remember Dale Hallahan was a local professional wrestler, and actually probably the best referee we had at the time here in the local scene. He's been a core part of our history with Cutting Edge Wrestling, the original incarnation, and Newfoundland Championship Wrestling. He refed for a lot of guys in matches where, like, even Tony King and Justin Locker were still wrestling. Those guys, he was refing for them when they were essentially rookies. So that's how long Dale has been around. And I know he's had some personal issues and sickness over the last several years, and it's unfortunate, but he passed away, and we do wish him him and his family the best, and their condolences and trying to get through everything. Unfortunately, Dale hasn't been around the local scene for a long time. I guess over time, when all your contacts and stuff leave and all your buddies are gone, it makes it hard to connect. But he was definitely an integral part of everything that I grew up with, for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely for anyone. And I mean, I hope there's going to be people that are watching this who are in or were in the local wrestling scene for sure. And I mean, anyone who was will definitely remember Dale. I'll just describe now. He had the mustache and the silver streaks in the hair, and I mean, he looked like a referee.
Yeah, he looked the
He
part
had
when nobody else did. You had referees back then wearing T-shirts and skater shoes, and
right,
dude
little
went in.
kids. But this guy he's
He
a
put up,
legend. That's thrown around a lot, but he's a legend in local Newfoundland wrestling as probably the best referee. There's a guy in NEW right now who's pretty good, but in overall, I think Dale is in all due respect one of the Newfoundland Wrestling Hall of Fame inductees in my mind.
yeah, speaking of that, I don't know if there is an actual Hall of Fame for professional wrestling in Newfoundland, but it is something that's been bubbling internally with, at least with myself and some of the crew members, about wanting to do it. Who would we induct? And I got to think that Dale Hallahan would be on that list if we did it. Sailor White would be the obvious candidate. Vince Austin, Cowboy Mike Hughes, like a lot of those guys, but like Dale for sure, absolutely.
Definitely, man, for sure. And I mean, I've seen a lot of referees run through our territory, as it were, but just there's something about that guy, man. He was classic for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to end it there, man. It's been a good chat. But before we do, it's plug time. If you have any social media or anything else you want to throw in there, your website, of course.
Yeah, so we're pretty much everywhere right now. We do have a website, simple, newevolutionwrestling.com. You can find us on Facebook by just searching New Evolution Wrestling. There's actually two New Evolution Wrestlings. We're the Canadian one, obviously, with the neon logo, because there's one in New York. Twitter at NEW Wrestling NL. You can look us up on Instagram, just search New Evolution Wrestling. And TikTok, we're even on there, so you can look us up and see a few TikTok videos. We're trying to ramp that up now.
I better not see you dancing up on there, man.
No, I was thinking about getting Brandon to break out his old Brandon Flip gimmick and do Gangnam Style, but You know, I don't think he's going to do that. But no, all jokes aside, we just put up little cool clips and highlights of our product, and hopefully it gets out there, because it is any platform like that, which is essentially free, and well, it's like YouTube or whatever. It's a good way to get our name out there, right? So
Definitely, for sure. And of course, the 2 events you have coming up, you want to plug those?
yeah, June 11th and 12th at the CLB Armory. And I don't know when this is coming out, but we actually had one in Clarenville in June, at the end of June the 26th as well. But we'll just leave the ones in CLB Armory. Summercade, no, we'll do them in order. So the anniversary show, the 50-year anniversary, is on June 11th. And then the very next night is June 12th. Tickets for the 12th are already gone because it was limited capacity for both nights.
Of course.
I'm pretty sure by the time this gets released, they'll probably both be sold out. But we're looking forward to getting back out there. It's been our first show in the last, since when did we do one last? It was a few months ago anyway, because we had another lockdown, and we're itching to get back out there, and the fans are super excited too. They're messaging me like crazy. So I'll leave that there, but you guys come out and join us if you can, especially when we have a bigger capacity. We'll show you a good time, and it's going to be, nothing but growth once we get on the other end of this pandemic.
For sure. And I mean, for now, if fans can't get out to the shows, they can still catch you guys on NTV. Is that correct?
We can. Yeah. So obviously our footage is canned footage. There's nothing like live there or nothing like that, but you can absolutely catch us on NTV. We're also on Rogers, here locally on the Avalon, and on Eastlink as well, right across Canada. So you can look up your local schedules for all that kind of fun stuff and find out where we are. But NTV is definitely Sunday, or Saturday at 1:00. I know that, and Rogers is on Sunday at 12:30 on the Avalon. So
perfect, excellent. All right, man. I appreciate your time for sure. It's been a pleasure having a little chat.
Yes,
and,
man.
Once everything gets back on the go, we'll definitely have you back on for sure.
Perfect.
All right, Travis, take it easy, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.